Hello, my name is Miklos Gaspar, and I'm in charge of digital communications at the IAA. We are live from Vienna, our headquarters, and this is the fifth session in a series of lives where we discuss what it is like to work at the IAA and explain our recruitment process. We'll also answer some of the questions that many candidates have asked us about working for us. You too can ask us questions, just drop them in the comment section and we'll answer some of them at the end of this session. Today's topic is how to join the IAA, what opportunities are available, where to look for them, and much more. Given the topic, this time we have a panel of 3 HR professionals. First, next to me, we have Jack Malapitan, recruitment officer from the Philippines. Then her boss, Pedro Alvarez Corbacho from Spain, who is the head of our recruitment unit. And last but not least, we have Nancy Macharia from the UK. She's in charge of learning and staff development. So to begin with, Pedro, how can one join the IAA?
Thank you, Miklos. So there are many different opportunities. Thank you, Miklos. There are many different opportunities, many different ways to join the IAEA. We have an internship program, we have junior professional officers, we have fixed terms and temporary positions, consultancies, but it all starts in our career webpage. So our career webpage contains a lot of valuable information, a lot of resources also for applicants to support them throughout their journey to join the IAA. So I would encourage everyone to check all the information that is available there. Also, you can follow us on social media. You can follow our employment page on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, and other platforms where we have a presence. Yeah? In any case, it's important that you understand that all of our applications are received throughout our e-recruitment system, which is Taleo.
So what kind of profiles are we looking for?
Thank you. Thank you. So we are a technical organization. So of course we are looking for a lot of candidates, talented candidates with a technical background. Yeah. However, this is not the only target. So this is not our only objective. We have a lot of vacancies in those areas, in the areas of nuclear science and technology, but we also have a lot of vacancies in other areas of the organization, legal, human resources, IT professionals, management, finance. So we have a variety of offers that are there for all applicants. Yeah. We have around 200 staff vacancies per year. But we also have a number of opportunities as interns, also non-staff like consultants, etc. So all in all, we have around 500 applications every year.
Thank you. That's a lot of applications. So Jacqueline, once somebody submits their application, what happens next?
Okay, so once a vacancy closes, thank you. So once a vacancy closes, the hiring manager, with the support of human resources, reviews all the submitted applications and comes up with a short list. So depending on how long this short list is, we may also conduct pre-assessments. Pre-assessments can be in the form of asynchronous video interviews or written assessments or proctored assessments. So these pre-assessments are not compulsory steps in the process. However, once we have a stronger shortlist, we proceed to panel interviews, and then we also conduct reference checks. For more senior positions, we also have psychometric and ability testing.
So that's a lot of steps. And I know as a hiring manager, i.e. a supervisor of a new hire, that there can be between 200 and 300 applicants. So how long does the process take?
Okay, so compared to the private sector, our processes usually take longer. Because for one vacancy, we sometimes get 300 to 400 applications. So it takes time to review all of them. However, our processes take about 6 to 8 months, but we're constantly trying to optimize this process.
Thank you. Pedro, coming back to you, how would you describe the ideal candidate?
So, apologies. So, yes, of course, it all depends on the vacancy that we're publishing. So we have the description of the ideal candidate. It is specified in each of our vacancies. But of course, we have also a number of competencies and values that are transversal to all of our vacancies. Yeah, the IAA uses a competency framework, which is very similar to the one used at the UN, which encompasses 3 main values, 4 core competencies, and 11 functional competencies. So the ideal candidate, it's mainly those persons who can adhere to those values, who can relate to those values, and who demonstrate that are competent in those competencies that are described on the vacancy notice, and also those which apply to the whole of our positions, the core competencies.
So this may sound new to some people. So Jackie, what should they do to prepare? How can you prepare yourself best for a process like this with the IA?
Okay, so first I would recommend to the candidates to be prepared, read about what the IAEA does, or even dive into the projects that the divisions are doing to get to know us more. Second, I would really recommend to candidates to tailor their application to the position they're applying for. Take time to prepare your application so it's easier for the hiring manager to see that you're a good fit for the position. And third, we have a lot of resources available, such as these live sessions. We also have webinars on our webpage where we talk about the recruitment process at the IAEA. We also talk about how to give a very good competency-based interview. So we welcome you to check out these resources. And lastly, if you don't succeed the first time, just keep trying. It's a very competitive process, but we have a lot of success stories of applicants who got in maybe on the second or third try.
Thank you. Perhaps we could talk just a bit more about competency-based interviews, which may be new to some. And again, from me as a hiring manager, I know that some people who seem very good in their written tests just don't know how to handle competency-based interviews. So if one of you could perhaps just discuss that a bit. Pedro?
Okay, so I can take that. Yes, competency-based interviews are pretty specific. It's broadly used in the private sector, also in the UN, yeah? And competency-based interviews focus on a candidate's previous experience as a matter to, or as a way to demonstrate how they would perform in the job in the future, yeah? So competency-based interviews are usually based on questions about the previous experience of a candidate. So competency-based interview questions are often starting with tell us about the time, or give us an example of your previous experience about this particular aspect. How did you manage to implement this particular project? How did you communicate a tough information or a sensitive information to your team? These kind of questions, yeah. And the answers of the candidates should focus on their previous experience as a way to demonstrate that they're competent, that they can actually do the job in the future, yeah.
Thank you very much. So now we've learned a lot about the recruitment process. What happens once you join the IAA? So we have with us Nancy, who, as I mentioned earlier, our head of learning and development. So what can a candidate expect when they arrive at the IAA?
First, we begin before they arrive at the IAA. So once you accept your offer, we begin to reach out to you to prepare you to make your way to the IAA. This could be in Vienna, Tokyo, Monaco, New York, or in Toronto. But either way, we will be beginning to onboard you, give you information about the duty station, because we would want you to be successful. Having gone through this process that Jackie and Pedro outlined, we want you to be successful. So we anticipate you're coming to us. On arrival, there will be an onboarding process that you will do with HR and an induction that you will have with your manager. There's also an orientation course for newcomers to the agency. And this is not only a face-to-face portion that talks about the things that Pedro was talking about, our values and our competencies and our ethical stance, but we will also then have little trips to other places around the building, part of our laboratory, so you can understand the fullness of what the agency does and the agency's history. We also introduce you to our performance management system to set you up for success. We will also take you through a walkthrough of our internal communications pages so you know where to find information. And of course, there are videos on benefits and entitlements that you can look at. And all the way beginning with Taleo, once you accept that offer, a lot of that information begins to open out for you. And so we do anticipate our candidates, and we do want you to be successful when you join the agency.
Sorry. For sure, as you've heard, we spend a lot of time selecting you, so we want to make sure you are successful. So Nancy, part of that is that we continue to help you learn. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So what do we offer in terms of learning? Like I said, it begins with the induction process. And then in terms of more formal learning, there's on-the-job learning. Pedro talked about the CBI, or the behavior-based interviews, where we look at your past skills, but we're also saying, what does that look like within the agency? And your manager and others will take their time to ensure that you understand what is expected of you. And of course, other things like our own internal processes, there's training on that, and using our internal tools. We also have a range of trainings related to our values and our competencies, and also more broadly on work and life balance itself. We have some external learning opportunities, but some of the greatest opportunities that we have are actually within functioning in your role. So we have things like the Scientific Forum and other places that we can get involved that will give you the opportunity to be able to be of value, but also learn from your colleagues, and also on cross-functional teams, lots of projects around that, and opportunities sometimes to be reassigned for short-term into other posts where you can continue to learn and to grow. We've also partnered with people like LinkedIn with a large portfolio of e-learning. So we are definitely investing in your continued learning and performance.
Many thanks, Nancy, for that explanation. So now turning to the questions that we have received in the last few minutes. First one, Pedro, let me ask you this. It's about references. So how much do references count in the application process? And does it matter whether one's references are internal or external, so IEA-specific references?
Thank you for that question. So reference checks are conducted at the end of the process, yeah? So I would say it's just a confirmation, or it's an added layer of checks that we do on candidates to make sure that we're actually making the best hiring choice. Yeah, so they count in the sense that, of course, references are carried out in confidence, and when they're positive, then of course we confirm the selection. When they're not that positive, then we look into that a little bit more in detail. Yeah. They do not, we do not really differentiate between internal or external. So any reference is a good one for us, because we trust that they're done in good faith and honestly. Yeah. So that's it's important for us. We have now externalized this service to the UN Service Center on Human Resources Service. It's an organization called OneHR, which is based in Bonn, and they're specialized in this process, and they're carrying out now references for us.
Thank you. Jackie, the next question relates to something you talked about. Somebody has asked, how detailed should the CVs be when they apply?
Okay. So all applications are received through our Taleo system, where candidates are supposed to fill in the personal history form. And there you would find different areas that you need to fill out. So if you attach a CV, it's optional for us. It's not a requirement. But as a recruiter, I would highly suggest that you craft a very good letter of motivation as well. And as I mentioned, tailor your application to the position you're applying to. It's very easy to see generic applications. And if a hiring manager is reviewing hundreds of applications, it's not exactly easy to see how fit you are to the role if you don't tailor your application.
Thank you. That's very clear. Nancy, let me ask you the next question. It's about the level of nuclear expertise we require from our candidates. Somebody's asking, as a safety engineer working outside the nuclear domain, I see that many of the vacancies posted by the IAEA require experience within nuclear. Would the IAEA encourage and consider applications from professionals aspiring to transition into the nuclear field through the IAEA?
Thank you. That's a really interesting question. In the light, I think, of what Pedro was talking about, the competency-based interviewing and behavioral-based, and then I'll also touch upon the motivational letter, because I think it's important for candidates to indicate to the best of their ability what their true expertise is, but also what they have learned in the past or what some of their aspirations are. So if you're working in a similar field, I would say please go ahead and apply, making it clear how your skills, current skill sets or current experiences are transferable into that position. It's not always a one-on-one match, but very often, because we detail down into the competencies, you may find that the competencies that we require will be the competencies that already you're exhibiting the role that you have. So we try not to penalize people for lack of opportunity if they meet the minimum requirements in terms of knowledge, skills, and the attitudes that require for the job.
Thank you. Let me ask a follow-up on that. So when the job description says experience in nuclear field required, then is that like, that means only people who have that experience should apply? Sorry, let me start again. So to follow up on that, when the job description, the vacancy notice, says that experience in the nuclear field is required, then could somebody like the person who asked the question apply, or it's not required?
If the word is required, then that is required, and I will ask my colleagues to also. Oh, sorry. If the word is required, then it is required. If it's something that's desirable, then that's desirable. And that's why we're saying, please do in your motivation letter talk about the truth, about what it is that you have studied, you have learned, you've been exposed to, and put in your motivation letter your aspirations. You never know, as we review those, whether your base competencies are able to match, but required is required, and desirable is definitely a different a thing altogether.
The next couple of questions we received are related to people's backgrounds again. So Pedro, are we interested in people with academic background? And then other person is asking whether experience in a nuclear power plant is something that we consider relevant.
So absolutely, academic experience is something valuable for us, and even sometimes we specify that in vacancy notice. Yeah, of course. We cannot use a blanket approach. This statement doesn't serve for all vacancies. We have to read very carefully the vacancy notice and then understand which ones, for which ones this aspect is, let's say, an asset or something valuable. On the contrary, for other vacancy notice, hands-on experience, practical experience in the field is required because the function demands that. Yeah, experience in a nuclear power plant is highly appreciated at the agency, and is also a skill that we are looking for a lot, especially women who are working in this area. This is an area, gender parity is a subject. It's an important subject at the moment at the agency, and yeah, we are hoping to attract more women with experience in nuclear power plants. Yeah.
Now, perhaps just to clarify that, the experience in nuclear power plants is just for positions relevant to that field of work.
Of course. As I said at the beginning, this is all specified in the vacancy notice. So the focus for applicants should be the vacancy notice. This is the definition of the perfect candidate. The requirements are specified there. And then in general, a lot of our positions require the experience in nuclear power plant. Of course, mainly in the any department, but also sometimes it's valuable for safeguards or NS. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie, one of our viewers is asking if we have remote positions, so positions that they can work from home.
There are some consultancy opportunities that are home-based, but I would say a majority of our positions are based in our offices, most of them here in Vienna. It's always specified in the vacancy notice if we allow, if the position is here at the headquarters or in other duty stations or home-based.
Thank you. The next question, perhaps, Nancy, you could answer this. It's about learning, really. Is it possible to get feedback about the recruitment process for candidates who who didn't get selected, as this would help them learn for later.
So we keep forgetting this button. Given the large number of applicants that we have, we would like to provide feedback, but it just physically is not possible to provide feedback to all candidates who have applied for a job. But it would be something we would want to do, but it really is just not feasible for us given the large number of applicants. We hope that you will understand.
Thank you. So next, we got a question on we said we have several hundred vacancies, but they said they look on our website right now and they only see 22. So is there somewhere else to look than our website, Pedro?
No, there is anywhere else. There is nowhere else. So actually, all of our vacancies are published on the career webpage. It maybe just happened that right now are only 20 at the stage of publication, but there are many other vacancies which are ongoing. Yeah, so we talk about 200 staff vacancies over the year, more or less, a little bit more, I would say. But yeah, it's normal that at any given time, at the stage of publication, are something like maybe 30, 40, 20, like now. Yeah.
Thank you, Jackie. The next question is for you. Is time spent doing PhD in nuclear engineering counts as experience when you have the number of years of experience somebody needs?
It really depends on the job you're applying to. So for some positions, it is a valuable experience for us. But if you're applying for a position where it's not required, then it may not be as valuable as in other positions. We would highly recommend that if you're studying PhD and you're doing projects as part of your PhD studies, please indicate that in your personal history form as well, and highlight there what you're currently working on, what's part of your study, so that it can be evaluated as part of your experience.
Thank you. Nancy, we have an applicant or potential applicant from Libya who is wondering whether nationality counts in any way and whether it would be to his advantage or disadvantage to be from a country like Libya.
I think Pedro mentioned about our gender parity, and we are particular about that, but we also want good representation globally, and especially from developing countries. So we encourage applicants from around the world. And let me just repeat again, gender parity is important for us, and so is geographical representation. So we seek actively to have applicants from a broad range around the world.
Thank you. There's still quite a few questions that people are asking, so I suggest we go on and not stop here. Pedro, how is pre-screening done? Is it done by people or some system eliminating candidates based on keywords?
That's a very good question as well. We're not at the artificial intelligence era at the IAA yet. Yeah. So actually, it's a little bit of both. Yeah. So when you apply for a vacancy, the system asks you to answer a number of questions. Yeah, we call that filtering questions. So these questions are a translation of what the minimum requirements are. So the minimum requirements are translated into these kind of questions, and then all candidates need to answer these questions. So the system recognizes which candidates have all these minimum requirements or which ones do not have all of them or only part of them. Yeah. So we still look at those candidates who, even if they have indicated that they do not meet the minimum requirements, they come very close. Yeah. So just to make sure that no one falls between the cracks, and also that making sure that everyone is given due regard. Yeah. But yeah. The initial stage of the pre-screening is based on these filtering questions that the system recognizes, acknowledges the answers of the candidate. Then after that, of those who have indicated that they meet all the minimum requirements, then the recruiter together with the hiring manager looks at those applications, and they come back with the shortlist, with a proposed shortlist of the best, let's say, the top candidates within that category. Yeah?
Thank you. So perhaps important to emphasize that it's not enough to tick the box that you meet a particular requirement. You also have to explain how you meet that requirement, right? I mean, I sometimes, the hiring manager, find myself not understanding why somebody would have ticked that box, because I don't find details in the rest of their application. So next question, Jackie. Can we just post a CV and motivation letter and send it to the agency when there's no advertisement of a particular post?
So we really need to hire against a particular vacancy, and all hiring managers only look at the vacancy, all the applicants to a particular vacancy requirement. So we would highly request to please apply against the vacancy so that we can, as Pedro mentioned, so nothing falls into the cracks. We all review applicants from the same system, not through LinkedIn or through email. Yeah.
So having said that, we sometimes have these pipelines, right? Could you talk a bit about that?
Yes, I'll answer that. So yes, we sometimes have pipelines. Mainly, we have those pipelines for generic job descriptions. So a pipeline is a kind of vacancy notice, but for which we do not have a specific vacancy to fill yet. Yeah. So the purpose of this vacancy notice, or so to say pipelines, is to generate a reserve list of candidates, of talent that we can call upon in case of need. Yeah. If I remember correctly, we have a couple of pipelines ongoing at the moment. We had recently one for admin support, which is quite generic, and then we also have a couple for cancer therapist, quite general. Also a women leader in nuclear energy, and another one for nuclear applications, if I remember correctly. So those are generic positions, not necessarily for staff positions, for fixed-term positions or staff positions. Sometimes we call, we issue a pipeline also for experts, yeah, because we also call upon the assistance of experts at the agency.
Thank you. And so what happens? Somebody applies to this pipeline, then they get selected or they get shortlisted, they get on a roster. How will they hear from us? And then do they then need to apply when a particular vacancy comes up that's only available for these people? How do we use that pipeline, and how is it useful to apply?
I'll answer that as well. So yes, so the terms of the pipelines and the purpose of the pipeline is really, it's indicated in the pipeline itself, yeah, in the vacancy itself. So sometimes we just use these pipelines to generate this reserve list that we use every time there is a temporary position that we need someone. Sometimes it's just to generate a list of experts in, for instance, cancer therapy, and then we call upon them when we need them for some roundtables or expert groups. Yeah. So in general, the way to proceed is that you submit your application. Usually you receive, normally you receive an acknowledgement receipt of your application, and then there is some kind of informal, at least an informal interview. Yeah. So we have some kind of gathering or a video conference with the person responsible for this pipeline and the candidates, just to understand a little bit if the person has the right profile. And then afterwards, candidates are informed either you are just placed on the reserve list or you are called upon if there is an opportunity where you can participate. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the explanation. Nancy, a couple of quick questions, all sort of related. Is there an age limit for applicants? Is English language always required? And whether qualified candidates from a developing country would be considered with high priority?
That's what we call a marathon question in interviewing. So I think it's 3 questions in one. So the first one was age-related. You'll be pleased to know that in the agency, we do not discriminate against age. However, the retirement age for the UN is 65. So please be aware that that is a retirement age, and we comply with that just like the rest of the UN. The second question was?
English.
The second question was about English. And again, if you read the vacancy, it's really important to read the vacancy notice because it will tell you which language, and it may tell you whether other languages are desirable or not. But for all intents and purposes, English is the main language that we use in the agency. But we do value other languages because we serve member states. And the last one was?
Whether we give high priority to developing
As we said, we are looking for more and more candidates, staff members, let me say that. We would like to have more staff members from a wider representation globally and especially from developing countries. We will still, of course, balance that against hiring the best of what's out there. And so please apply, please apply. You never know when it's going to be your turn in any process, so please apply.
Thank you for that. So Jack, let me ask you the last question. So regarding the recruitment process, is the application stored somewhere in the system and can be considered for future applications? So for instance, if I apply for a post, I don't get it, but my application is a fit for a next position, will I be taken into consideration automatically?
Okay, so you will not be considered automatically, but there are cases wherein we search our database for potential applicants for positions. So when we do active sourcing, we may reach out to you and invite you to apply to a position. But regardless, you would still need to fill in an application to be considered.
Thank you very much. Oops, thank you very much. And thank you all for joining this session. We did not get the chance to ask our panel all the questions, but partly that's because some of your questions relate to episodes that we've had in the past. So in the comments, in the description, you'll find links to our previous episodes. Please watch these, including about opportunities for young professionals, which was what some of you were asking about. We are also interested to hear from you on what other topics you would like us to discuss. Again, put this in the comment section. And in the meantime, if you have not done it yet, subscribe to our AGI newsletter and check out our page, ia.org/employment. Stay tuned and see you next month.